and welcome to Absolutely Not. Thank y'all so much for being here today. My name is Katrina Stroll. My pronouns are they, she, he, and you can learn more about me on my website, www.katrinastroll.com. Real quick, if you appreciate the work that I do here or elsewhere, please visit the Support the Mission page of my website. There are several options to choose from to support my work, so please choose one. The keywords for this episode are transphobia, homophobia, and discernment. I encourage y'all to look up the definitions of these words and compare them to the definitions you carry with you on a daily basis. If you need help comparing, please let me know. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp allows you to connect with one of 24,000 licensed therapists in a safe and private online environment. You pay a low-fat, flat fee for unlimited therapy with your therapist. Visit www.betterhelp.com/absolutelynot for more information and to get 10% off your first month. This link can be found in the show notes. Today's episode is titled, Can't Fight Every Battle. And I'm excited to talk about this with our amazing special guest, Xan Harp, they, them, she, her. Xan is a trans professional who works to create trans and queer spaces within the retail and customer service work environment. They have been in customer service for over 7 years and have implemented small changes to make every workspace they've inhabited more inclusive for trans and queer employees through training and special event initiatives. They identify as transgender, neurodivergent, and queer. Xan, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Katrina.
Oh, and just so y'all are aware, I am very, very nervous about this conversation. As y'all know, my pronouns have changed fluidly throughout this year. I now go with the pronouns they, she, he, and I'm excited to talk about the changes that need to be made in a lot of spaces. Xan, the title of this episode alone has me thinking a lot of things, but why can't we fight every battle?
Because it's exhausting. There have been so many times where I kind of wish I had said something, but when I look down the line, it's very obvious that that energy conservation has actually served me more than the actual exchange.
Wow, okay, let's get into it, because these words that you are using, exchange, conservation, these words are important, especially when describing the energy and the education that we could be bestowing upon these people that are causing us harm. Hold on, I have so many questions, but how do you know when it's time to conserve or to exchange?
I think generally the sort of my marker for when to conserve or when to like really have the exchange is in like the perceived intent. Because I think, I don't say the full intent because I don't know everyone's intent, but like the perception of their intent. Because I think there's something very different from someone asking me, are you a boy or a girl? Versus, so what are your pronouns and what's your gender? Like those are they may get to the same points, but those are very different questions. And so I think a lot of that comes from simply having to kind of guess where they're coming from. I do think kind of one of my small boundaries with that is that I'll always give an honest answer to children. But for adults, I sort of make the decision in the moment with a lot of things. Because I think if someone is coming at it in a more abrupt way, I can recognize that there's probably going to be even more work to kind of get them to the point that they can accept my answer.
Sorry, my chest is like caving in right now just because you are sharing so much insightful information. And I think about the times when I just think about direct communication. So if I have to guess your intent, I'm probably going to be harmed like in the process. So anybody who's trying to win that brownie badge of allyship or whatever, don't have us guessing your intent. Like there's harm in that. I already be fighting people on the regular. I shouldn't have to fight people who are trying to be educated. So that's step one. When did you realize that sometimes you don't know the full intent, or that you were hold on. Sorry. I'm so sorry, Avery. When did you give yourself permission to ride on partial intent? Like, oh no, that's what I got from this. I'm gonna ride with that.
At one of my last jobs, I really came in with the mindset that I was going to use every moment that I could for education to educate someone. And in certain moments, it really, I guess, backfired in the sense that like their actions didn't necessarily change. And all that was really happening was the energy expenditure on my side. So I think when I moved jobs, I was very intentional about how I wanted to kind of talk about my gender, and that it was more one of those things that if someone is coming to the table to have a conversation, I'm willing to have that conversation. But if someone is coming to but it's one of those things, I think, where I've had enough times that someone is only asking so that they can judge me in a way they see fair or fit, that I think I really kind of had to make that adjustment, that I can't just go for education every time. I have to give myself the space and the permission to let people know I'm not going to answer that question.
Let these people know. And I love that you talked about the table, because baby, I used to drag this table with me. Like, all right, well, I have a table with me. Y'all can sit down and have this conversation with you if you'd like to. I don't drag tables no more. Y'all better build a table for me to have this conversation, a safe ass table. And it made me think of this weird analogy of like me inviting you over to like a Thanksgiving meal with like all the fixing and everything, and you show up and you're like, oh, I'm vegan. Do you have anything vegan? Bitch, why you didn't tell me you was vegan when I texted you? Or why didn't you tell me you were homophobic when we started this conversation? Why didn't you tell me? Oh my gosh. What, have you ever had to have that? Or have you ever had that realization like, oh, you're just transphobic, homophobic?
Yes.
And how did that shake out? Did you have to let them know like, oh, I cannot continue to have this unsafe conversation?
Technically, yes. I had a coworker for a while who anytime he would hear my like proper pronouns, he would be like, why are you calling insert misgendering that? So like, and so there were a couple times that I stopped, I had the conversation with him. And both of those times it was kind of he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, so I don't use these pronouns. Like, I don't respond to like buddy, pal, boss. Like, I don't use those with me. And it was one of those things after those two conversations, the next time he asked it, I ignored him. I was like, I'm not willing to, because it was one of those things, it felt like the only work that was trying to be done was when we were having the conversation, rather than if he was actually interested and wanting to understand it. I felt like other work should have been going into it.
And it should have been going into it. There are so many, okay. So we talk about relationships a lot in this space. And so many people are like, they're thrown off by the word relationship because these are not relationships. These are your coworkers, professional. These are still relationships. If I'm putting 1,000% into a relationship and you putting not even a garbage can, like slice, I don't know, like nothing into the relationship, then how could it be healthy? Do you constantly have to remind people of like, this is still what I need in a relationship? We're in a relationship. I need you to give 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I think this is more of a personal like recognition that I think especially at my workspace, I don't need people to give me 100% because I am choosing not to give 100% of myself there anymore. And so I think in those relationships, it's one of those things that I think I go in and I can recognize that there are people that I'm going to connect better with and that I am willing to give more to. And there are people I don't feel as connected to and I'm not willing to give as much of who I am to. And I think that that recognition has helped because I think it not only helps me and my energy, while it may not be communicated, I think it is often felt that I'm courteous, I'm kind to everyone, but I am not going to talk about my weekend with some people, and I will tell them, "Oh, it was great," and that's the end of the conversation. Versus like my friends will ask me and I'll go into more detail, and it's just, I think it's one of those things that like I've had to do a lot of work to realize that work does not have to be the place I like belong in a big sense. And so kind of searching for that belonging at work is just going to lead to me constantly searching for it. And so I think I take what I can get in the moments, and have had some really incredible connections with some of my coworkers. But in the other spaces, I don't, or with some other people, I just don't choose to interact in that way. Because I think technically at work, I am out as a trans person, but it's not a conversation I've had with every single person. And it's not a conversation I'm going to have with every single person. And it's one of those things where I think it took me a long time to recognize that I was able to just be like, I don't want to talk about my transness with you. And that's okay.
And that is okay. And y'all, I am tearing up just because do you know how many people tie so much of their identity to work? Like that is the only, and it's not, it does not pass over me that cisgendered white men like do it the most, because they have not explored their identities elsewhere. They have not found community in their other identities elsewhere. Like that's all they have. They cling onto it and they expect that from other people. I am so happy for you that you don't do that, that you are encouraging other people to not do that. Katrina, get it together so you can get through this conversation. One of the words that, or what I wrote down was honesty. So if your employer is being honest about like, oh no, we're hella transphobic here, or we're hella homophobic here, or we're racist as hell here, you need to be honest as well. I'm like, okay, then you getting 10% here, then you're getting 10%, and I expect to be paid on the first and the 15th. Like, you're getting what you are giving me. You're not making me feel belong here, then I will not act like I belong here. Like, I'm not gonna do that no more. It sounds like you've had a lot of experiences that led you to being like, no, I'm giving what you're giving. Was there ever a time in your life where you gave way too much and and you were like, oh no, I can't do this anymore?
Yes. I so for about the first year and a half of the pandemic, I was working at like a large food service chain, and we were easily doing between $7,000 and $10,000 in sales per day. And we were open for about 16 hours. And I would run the store for 10 to 12 of those hours. And I was constantly trying to kind of get more out of it, because I was like, if I just work harder, or if I become a manager, like I'll be able to kind of figure it out and be able to, in some ways, make space for myself and what I needed. But that ultimately did lead to burnout and some really rough like mental health phases for me. And so it was one of those things that when I left that space, I kind of had to take a lot of stock of, okay, in this next position, in this next space, what do I actually want? And what am I willing to give? And I was constantly giving at this other job, to the point that like, yeah, my mental and physical health just were not in great places. And I kind of came out of it and was like, okay, these are the things I did like about this job. And these are the things that didn't work. And like, I'm going to take responsibility for what I can change of what didn't work. And I'm going to let this business take responsibility for the rest of it. And yeah, and so I really kind of sat down and had that conversation with myself to like figure out what I wanted to do moving forward. And it's helped me immensely to enjoy my life more outside of work.
And to the people that may be listening to this, who may be lost in the sauce right now and probably thinking, I don't even know where to start, please hear Xan's words. You have to start taking stock and being honest about where you are in inventory. How much mental health do you have? How much physical health do you have? How much self-respect do you have at the end of each shift? If the stock is low, baby, if the stock is low, please think about getting a new vendor, getting a new, I can only go so far with the metaphor, but y'all understand what I'm saying. Please take stock. Ooh, what I wrote down though, I wrote down the lies that we are told, because you talked about the lies like, if I just work harder, then when I get to the top, then I will make this space more inclusive for my people, for the people that share my identities and my lived experiences. Xan, does that ever happen?
No.
and and they just, well, and I think about like when the first time I heard that lie. Do you know about the first time somebody told you like, oh yeah, and then you'll be able to make change if you keep going higher?
Oh yeah, I was told that from a very young age because my father hated his job, but he made good money and like worked up to it, and he was like, this is worth it. It's not.
Gosh. And I think so many people now are starting to realize that, especially because of the global panini that occurred when so many organizations just was like, oh no, y'all need to keep working. Keep, your grandma died, keep working. Your people around you are dying, please keep working. Was it during the panini that you realized that these were lies, or was it after the panini?
uh it was sort of in the middle, I guess.
And and was it hard for you to let go of those lies at all, or did you just flip a switch?
It took time. uh I think especially with, I guess, just the way I was raised and kind of like the trauma that was instilled in me, that it like was a really hard thing to kind of even start that work of like separating my worth and what I can do with like what's actually happening at work and like in like especially the customer service field. Because I think, yeah, I think it was kind of, there was definitely some breaking points that were kind of like, okay, I cannot allow myself to like treat myself this way or be treated this way. Um, and the pandemic really exacerbated some of that, because like staffing shortages and product shortages. And so, yeah, I think it was kind of like a work in progress during the pandemic, but like finally I was like, okay, like the prep work is done. Now that we're moving to a new job, the real work is going to happen now.
And for the people who are listening to this, I mean, a lot of them might be thinking, okay, I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. Like tomorrow is the day. I'm tired of giving 1,000% for breadcrumbs. But I want them to know that it's not a flip switch. You have to do work. You have to do progress. You have to progress in when you want to and build on your discernment. Are there any people in your life that have been very supportive in you kind of going through this progress?
Yeah, so uh my husband has been kind of, he's been the person through most of this that has seen kind of both the like good things as well as the very bad things, um, and has been a really big support of, hey, you need space for yourself at at work. Like that was probably one of the first big steps, is recognizing I'm allowed to take space while at work. that it's not all owned by the people I'm working for. Because I think there's also with that, if you work hard and keep moving up and forward in your job, that's how you like do the thing. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, personally, no. Like I need space in work. Like I am no longer going to allow myself to run myself ragged for someone else in that way. Like it's just not what I can do anymore. I really don't have the capacity anymore to just keep giving.
Oh my gosh. And I hope that touched somebody's heart. I love that you use the word own, or that your husband used the word own, because it's kind of defining the relationship that you have with your employer. How much of yourself, your body, your worth are you allowing your employer to own? Xan, how much does your employer own of you now?
I would honestly say like 40%. Like not a lot. I don't call out because I do still need a paycheck, but I am not going to. There is like there's always some sort of expectation that you're supposed to be working every like waking moment that you're at work, and I'm going to take the breaks. They have a little sign in one of our spaces that said like, if you're bored, these are the things you should be doing. And I literally was talking to a coworker and I was like, if I'm bored, I'm gonna stay bored. Like I'm not gonna like try and find something else to do. I mean, granted, there are times where sort of you're in the mode, you're going, but for the most part, if I'm taking a break, I'm gonna take a break. And I'm gonna allow myself that because it's not that serious. Like at the end of the day, the work is gonna be done. I'm gonna get my paycheck. And as long as I'm not getting like told, hey, you need to change your actions, I'm not going to change what I'm doing.
Do you know how ridiculous? If you're bored, here are things that you can do, which are $1 billion profits. No, thank you. I'm okay. I will not be participating in the if I'm bored list. I will be like Xan and stay bored. To the people who are listening to this and are probably thinking, you know what? Tomorrow I want to go to work and stay bored. What would be the top 3 tips you would share with them about making these conscious decisions of taking space in those places?
I would say first thing, start small. Like just allow yourself like a longer bathroom break. Like I don't time my I've had spaces that have asked us to time our bathroom breaks. And I don't do that. I do what I need to do and kind of move forward. And so starting small, even if it's you're taking a couple extra minutes here or there. I would also say like, I guess also don't be afraid to try something small. Like I doodle at work all the time, and I've never been once like reprimanded for it or talked to about it, and actually get compliments on what I draw sometimes. And it's just one of those things that it's like a little part of me that I get to work with. Um, and I guess number 3 is, and this I feel like goes with a lot of things that I feel about like boundary making and taking space, is you don't have to ask for permission. And that took a while for me to get to, but you don't have to ask for permission to take more space for yourself.
Oh, that last one is going to make somebody quit their job tomorrow. And I hope that they do. I hope that they do. Or make them be like, you know what, I'm going to. I do want to touch on doodling real quick. For any leader in an organization, I just want you to know that doodling is actually a way that people that live with ADHD like stay focused and stay engaged in what they're doing. So if you're not accommodating, y'all need to reevaluate what accommodations look like, because there are so many more things that could be considered accommodations. So y'all need to have those conversations with your employees, because we have different needs. But thank you so much, Xan, for breaking these important steps to taking up more space with in all those spaces. Are there any last minute sprinkles that you'd like to share with the audience before we go today?
I guess really just harping on that one thing of like, you don't have to ask permission. Like a lot of the times I feel like people want to tiptoe around making boundaries. But like, as long as your boundaries aren't going to harm someone else or like impact their life in like a significant way, then you don't have to ask for permission or let them know that that boundary is set. If it's in a space where you're having an active conversation and someone says something, you can be like, hey, I'd really rather you not say that, and I'm going to do X if you do that again. But generally speaking, you do not have to ask for permission. And it makes things way easier just to like accept what you need and like go from there.
Gosh. And I just think about like when I first started realizing I didn't have to ask other people for permission, I started having small little meetings with myself, just like, okay, if you really need someone to ask permission from, let's sit down. Okay, I'd like to set this boundary. Cool. What's it doing? Da, 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 da. Great. Go ahead. Give yourself permission. If you have to do that whole agenda meeting thing, that's even better, because then you get to write it out and have a whole loving conversation with yourself. Thank you so much, Xan, for giving us so much permission in this space. And everyone, I found this amazing person on LinkedIn, and their link will be in the show notes. So please reach out, follow them. I'm excited to see what you do next. I'm so excited. But to everyone who's listening to this, keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to anything unaligned. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.